The battleship TIRPITZ, named after Admiral Alfred von Tirpitz from the First World War, was the largest ship in the history of the German fleet, the twin brother of the legendary battleship Bismarck, with a displacement of over 50,000 tons, armed with torpedoes and 380mm guns. At the time of its construction, TIRPITZ cost almost as much as 50 submarines, or around 200 million German marks, which is roughly equivalent to $10 billion today. TIRPITZ was laid down on November 2, 1936, and launched on April 1, 1939, from the Wilhelmshaven shipyards. In the same year, its twin brother was also launched in Hamburg. These battleships were of truly colossal proportions, unlike anything built in Germany before or after. They became a visible symbol of Germany's resurging power. Initially, the German plan was to use battleships of the Bismarck class as the main striking force of the German Navy in battles with the French and British fleets in the waters of the North and Norwegian seas. However, the course of World War II led the German command to employ these battleships as raiders to disrupt British maritime communication in the North Atlantic. Bismarck, the flagship of the class, was surrounded by British forces on May 27, 1941, and soon thereafter, it was sunk. The loss of Bismarck forced the German leadership to reconsider the use of its last super battleship. Hitler and Grand Admiral Ritter were cautious about the capabilities of large surface ships that lacked the support of aircraft carriers. While the construction of such ships continued in Germany, none of them ever entered active service. TIRPITZ was used sparingly and rarely participated in combat operations. Its mere presence in Germany was considered a significant threat to the Royal Navy, which was supplying goods to the Soviet Union. In September 1941, Hitler ordered the formation of a group of ships in the Baltic Sea to prevent the possible escape of the remnants of the Soviet Baltic Fleet to neutral Sweden. TIRPITZ was designated as the flagship of this group, but it was later disbanded. In March 1942, German intelligence received information about two Soviet convoys, PQ-12 and PQ-8, sailing from Iceland. TIRPITZ left its base, set out to intercept the convoys via the Arctic Ocean, and headed for Bear Island. The British were also searching for the German battleship, but due to bad weather conditions, neither side could locate the other. As a result, TIRPITZ was unable to find the convoys, and one of the German destroyers sank a Soviet timber transport ship. On March 9, 1942, a British reconnaissance plane finally spotted TIRPITZ, leading to the German decision to return the battleship to its base. During the summer of 1942, the Germans planned a grand operation known as Operation Tungsten to use a large number of ships and complete a swift attack to destroy convoy PQ-17. The German leadership believed this would weaken Soviet support from the Allies. However, during the operation, TIRPITZ was mysteriously absent from its usual position, contributing to the confusion of both the German and British forces. In the end, convoy PQ-17 was scattered, and many of its ships were lost. TIRPITZ's exact whereabouts and the reasons for its absence during this operation remain unclear. The command ordered the dispersal of convoy PQ-17 and recalled the cruisers and destroyers accompanying it to the west. On July 5, 1942, at around 7 o'clock in the morning, a German reconnaissance plane spotted the main protection forces of the convoy about 800 miles from the presumed interception point by German ships. Leaving the open sea, TIRPITZ, as part of the force under Admiral Otto Ciliax, was dispatched with the aim of intercepting convoy PQ-17. The convoy was attacked by the Soviet submarine K-21 under the command of Captain 2nd Rank Nikolai Lunin. The submarine launched four torpedoes from a long distance. The results of Lunin's attack were not immediately observed, but sounds of explosions were heard, interpreted as torpedo hits. This became the basis for Soviet press reports of damage. However, the attack was not successful. On the same day, at 1816, the Germans were spotted by a Soviet IL-4 aircraft of the Northern Fleet's Air Force. The aircraft transmitted a radio message that was intercepted by German radio interception services. At 21:47, Admiral Scheer received orders to abort the operation. The squadron turned and headed back, but unfortunately, this did not save the ships of convoy PQ-17. Over the next 3 days, German submarines and aircraft inflicted severe damage on the convoy. Of the 36 transport ships, 23 were sunk, and only 11 reached their destination without firing a single shot and without getting closer than 300 miles to the convoy. TIRPITZ achieved one of the most significant naval victories of the war during this operation. Upon returning from this mission, TIRPITZ did not require repairs, and a later examination of the ship's hull by the British, with the assistance of a Soviet specialist, did not reveal any signs of torpedo hits or repair work. Some contemporary experts believed that under the conditions at the time, the range and angle of the Soviet submarine's attack would have made it improbable for her to hit the German ships with torpedoes. The sounds of explosions may have been due to the detonation of the torpedoes on the seafloor. In September 1943, TIRPITZ participated in an attack by German forces on Spitsbergen. This was the only operation in which TIRPITZ used its artillery. After shelling Barentsburg with fire from TIRPITZ and its escorts, a landing party was sent ashore. However, TIRPITZ did not fire a single shot at enemy ships, despite attempts to sink them. After 26 unsuccessful attempts, there was another operation on October 31, 1942, involving midget submarines with the codename Operation Tidal. These devices were human-guided torpedoes, towed covertly underwater by a fishing trawler, Katia. Almost 18 kilometers from its destination, Katia ran into a strong headwind, and October 31st at 2200 hours, a loud scraping noise was heard on board. Divers discovered the loss of both torpedoes. Unfortunately, the operation had failed. It wasn't until almost a year later, on September 12, 1943, that the first successful operation against TIRPITZ took place. In conditions of low clouds and rain, Soviet pilot Leonid Khrushchev Walter Hallard located TIRPITZ's anchorage, descending below the cloud cover 3 times in the face of heavy anti-aircraft fire to take clear photographs. These photographs were promptly transmitted to the British Admiralty, which used them to prepare a new operation. On September 20th, an operation commenced, with TIRPITZ being the primary target. It was planned to attack the battleship Scharnhorst and the heavy cruiser Lutzow alongside TIRPITZ. The attack used 6 human-guided torpedoes, X-craft, that were towed to the area by conventional submarines. 2 of these X-craft managed to approach TIRPITZ, but their presence was detected. Both submarines dropped 2-ton mines on their target. TIRPITZ attempted to leave its anchor position but was unsuccessful in removing the mines. After successfully dropping the 2-ton charges, the submarines resurfaced just before the mines detonated as per their timers. The crews of the submarines were captured despite the perceived danger. Sometime later, there was the first explosion less than 10 meters from TIRPITZ's port side, causing significant damage to the ship's hull. The integrity of the fuel tanks was compromised, and one of the turbines was damaged. While this did not directly threaten the ship with sinking, it led to flooding of the fuel tanks on the port side, and the double hull was also breached. In total, TIRPITZ took on about 1,500 tons of water. The ship was temporarily incapacitated and was out of action from November 1943 to March 1944. During this time, only one air raid took place, during the night of February 10, 1944. Long-range Soviet bombers conducted the raid. Due to poor weather conditions, only 2 planes reached their target and dropped bombs. However, according to Soviet records, all the bombs detonated onshore, and TIRPITZ was not damaged in this attack. By April 1944, TIRPITZ had undergone repairs and could once again pose a threat. In response, the British Royal Navy launched Operation Tungsten in an effort to neutralize TIRPITZ. The operation involved a significant naval force, including 2 battleships, 2 escort aircraft carriers, 2 fast carriers, 2 cruisers, and 16 destroyers. The attack began on April 3rd, the day before TIRPITZ was to leave for sea trials after its repair. The attack was conducted in 2 waves by Barracuda torpedo bombers escorted by fighters. However, the attacking aircraft carried bombs of various types, including 730 kilograms armor-piercing bombs and depth charges. The first wave of attacks began at 5:30 and ended at 8 o'clock. 3 aircraft were lost, and Tirpitz's crew suffered 123 killed and 300 wounded. The battleship's armor belt and armored deck remained undamaged, but there was significant damage to the superstructure, requiring 3 months of repairs to fix. This attack effectively delayed Tirpitz's sea trials. Several more operations were planned, including Operation Planet, Operation Brown, and Operation Tiger Claw, but they were canceled due to poor weather in April and May 1944. In July 1944, Operation Paravane was conducted by the Royal Air Force. On September 15th, from the airfield in Yagodnik near Arkhangelsk, Lancasters were equipped with 5.5-ton tallboy bombs and experimental 227 kilograms ground-penetrating bombs. Despite a smokescreen laid to protect Tirpitz, one of the bombs hit the ship's bow, causing extensive damage that essentially rendered it inoperable. There was no possibility of dry docking Tirpitz for repairs, so in October, the battleship was transferred to Tromsø, Norway, where it was used as a heavy artillery floating battery in anticipation of an expected invasion of Norway. Tirpitz's new location, however, was within the range of heavy bombers from the Royal Air Force based in northern Scotland. The British continued their attacks on Tirpitz. I don't know about the decisions made by the Germans at this point, but on October 28th, another air raid was launched against Tirpitz. However, at the last moment, the operation was aborted. The ship was hidden by clouds, and only one tallboy bomb, which detonated near the ship, created a mushroom cloud. However, on the next occasion, November 12th, there was no cloud cover. 3 tallboy bombs hit the ship. One bounced off the turret armor, while the other 2 penetrated the armor, causing a roughly 60-meter hole in its left side. This also triggered a fire and subsequent explosions in the ship's magazine. As a result, Tirpitz capsized and, approximately 10 minutes after the attack, sank to the west of Tromsø in Akoya Bay. More than 950 of the approximately 1,700 people on board lost their lives. The exact reasons for the lack of defense are not entirely clear to this day. German fighter planes did not engage the incoming bomber group, and the fighter aircraft responsible for defending Tirpitz did not participate in its defense. Despite the fact that information about the approaching bombers was received more than an hour before the attack, German anti-aircraft defenses only managed to damage the engine of one of the aircraft involved in the raid. However, its crew made a forced landing in Sweden. The destruction of Tirpitz eliminated the last significant surface threat to communications in the North Atlantic and the Arctic Ocean. This allowed the main surface forces of the Royal Navy, including escort carriers, fast carriers, battleships, and battlecruisers, to be transferred from the Atlantic theater of operations to the Indian and Pacific Oceans, where they participated in combat operations against Japan. After the Norwegian campaign, the battleship was cut up for scrap. However, a significant fragment of the bow section remains where it sank in 1944. Additionally, the ship's generators were used as temporary power stations to supply the local fishing industry in the area around Honningsvåg. Currently, fragments of the battleship are used by the Norwegian Public Roads Administration as temporary road pavement during repair work, and some parts of the ship were melted down for scrap and other uses. A significant fragment of the armor plating is stored in the Royal Norwegian Navy Museum in Horten, not far from the ship's sinking location. In addition, artificial lakes have formed in the craters left by the tallboy bomb blasts that missed their target.
Torpedoes to starboard. Torpedoes to starboard. Enemy destroyer sighted. Enemy heavily damaged. Our team has taken the lead. We've destroyed an enemy cruiser.